Imagine purchasing a game for full price, only to have the free-to-play version of that game release after 2 weeks. Pretty wild, right? Well, this is what happened to the people who picked up Dead or Alive 6, a much anticipated and critically successful fighting game that has already taken flack in the news cycle before. This understandably has sparked off a bit of anger. However, when you look at things historically and in the context of the game's release, there is a hell of a lot more to it. Then, taking a deeper look at the free-to-play Core Fighters edition of this game, it is a fairly innovative business model that, for better or worse, might become more common in the future, with Activision Blizzard having already tried something similar multiple times. So that's what we're going to be diving into in this, one of the 2 industry reports up on the channel today. And I mean, hell, I could really do this as a sub-series called Business Models from the Shadow Realm. So, Dead or Alive 6, it's the latest entry in the long-running fighting game series. Reviews have been pretty great, but not without drama, with the Eurogamer reviewer somehow going in a rant about the US president, and more widely circulated, the $93 season pass that only covered 3 months of cosmetic content, but came with a disclaimer that there could be more DLC in that time window that would not be covered by the season pass. It's a pretty darn wild story, and if you'd like to learn more about it and the surrounding context, check out this video. So, the latest development is that the release of Dead or Alive 6 Core Fighters Edition has pretty much came. This free download contains 4 of the game's characters, with additional fighters and cosmetics being purchasable as DLC, along with the game's story mode. Now, to get a handle on how this went down, I think you kind of just need to look at the Twitter responses. There's a lot of confusion, and there's a lot of surprise over it coming out so soon, plus a good bit of pushback still over the season pass. Now, to put this in a more mainstream context, it would be sort of like having a full, AAA game release, only to have a free-to-play version of it that's kind of cut up wholesale be available 2 weeks later. Understandably, this was a surprise to many people so soon after launch, with many dropping money expecting that that was the only way they could play the game. Now, the thing is, it's primarily a communication problem. You see, Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate was functionally a new entry into the series, and it had a free-to-play Core Fighters edition at launch. That actually goes for its update edition, Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate Last Round, which had a Core Fighters edition 6 weeks after launch, I believe. Now, with DOA 6, the problem is that they did not really communicate it with specificity. You see, with DOA 5 Ultimate, they announced the Core Fighters edition along with, its release date. Even though that did eventually get pushed back a few weeks. That meant, though, that when customers were making their purchase decision, they had full information of what the plans were, when things were supposed to be happening, and that meant it was all above board. Unfortunately for Koei Tecmo's PR, things have not played out that way this time. They did not announce the Core Fighters Edition release date, even though it was only 2 weeks after the launch of the main game. Being real, for the release dates to be that close together, and for them to have not known, it's just not possible. In a January interview, the game director did reference a free-to-play version of the game existing, but when asked about the date, he said he could not comment on the accidental store page listing on the Microsoft Store that prompted the interview's question about the release date, and he said that they have not announced availability or content, but that it would likely be a short time after launch. Now, here's the thing. Dead or Alive 6 was delayed by 2 weeks. Now, without that delay, the time gap between the full game launch and the Core Fighters Edition would have been a lot closer to previous entries in the franchise, such as, say, Dead or Alive 5 Last Round and its Core Fighters Edition, showing us that this problem essentially could have been mostly created by communication incompetence. If they had have clearly communicated via actual press releases when the Core Fighters Edition was actually releasing, then they would have sidestepped this whole incident pretty much in its entirety. Yet, as it stands, many people did not know about the free version or its release date, and that meant that they picked up the game without complete knowledge of the developer's plans for it. So, that's why a slice of drama happened on the internet, but what's more important is the business model, and that's really what this channel exists to do, to go behind the stories and the headlines and really try to get to the meat of it. Now, this is a business model that I think we're going to see happen a lot more over time, with Activision Blizzard having already done this with StarCraft 2 and a number of Call of Duty games. Now, the thing is, the DOA 6 Core Fighters Edition is actually a great proposition. You get to play 4 of the characters in the game for free, and that includes all the modes you need for full multiplayer. Past that, you can purchase additional characters for $3.99, and the 9-character male pack for $33.99, and the 11-character female pack for $39.99, and all characters in one bundle for $49.99. I mean, yeah, it's a little funny having the packs be divided up like that, but hey, it is Dead or Alive. Past that, the story mode costs $19.99. So in total, the full game regularly costs $60, and if you purchase all of the fighters plus the story mode, it's $70. But if you're not interested in the story, then you save $10 overall. Now, many fighting game players, they actually main just a handful of characters, so maybe for $4, $8, or $12, you'd essentially have all the characters you'd ever play for multiplayer. So for many people, it's actually going to be a great option. Then for new players, you just get unlimited playtime demo, letting you master 4 fully developed fighting game characters through multiplayer fights, AI fights, and a training mode. You know what? It's actually a fairly good business model. It allows people to purchase it and see, pay for the things they want, don't pay for the things that they don't want, but ultimately it's been marred by their poor communications leading up to launch and their absurd $93 season pass, plus the comical number of skins that they pump into games in this franchise. The Core Fighters Edition means that I am going to play Dead or Alive 6, where I previously wouldn't because it's free. I'm not a big fighting game player, but you know what? I'm interested in trying a new fighting game, getting into a new genre, so getting to fully play a handful of characters for free, for as long as I want, that's brilliant. Hell, a PC player could download the Core Fighters Edition on their PS4. And, just buy the character that they main if they wanted to have it in multiple systems. Same goes if it ever gets a Nintendo Switch release. The fundamentals of this business model actually do give the consumer a bit more choice. It does allow people to try before they buy as well, which fundamentally is a good thing, even though they have managed to mess it up in other areas. Now, the idea of splitting a game into components is nothing new. Dead or Alive has been doing this for a while, with other fighting games joining in with the trend. Well, Activision Blizzard don't do this through a free-to-play model for the most part, but they have partially done it with Call of Duty Black Ops 4, allowing players to purchase the full game for $59.99 or to purchase the Battle Edition for $39.99, a third cheaper. Now, the Battle Edition only contains the Battle Royale mode and the multiplayer, arena shooter, traditional Call of Duty shooter component, and it does not have zombies. So for a player like me who doesn't care about zombies and will probably never touch it, well, you could just pay less money for the game. Indeed, looking at Black Ops 4, you can really see how the Dead or Alive model could be applied, having each one of its modes be available for a separate purchase. Now, looking over to StarCraft 2, we see something similar. Its competitive multiplayer is totally free, but its co-op commanders, past the free ones, do cost money as a sort of DLC, and each of the game's large 3 campaigns are a DLC as well, and there's a bunch of cosmetics and unit skins, commentator packs that support community and voice packs and stuff like that. Now, they've actually dabbled in narrative mission packs as DLC as well. Now, that all fits into the DOA Core Fighters Edition business model pretty decently, actually. I'm kind of interested to see what will happen with Overwatch and its next, edition. I would not be surprised if Overwatch Archives, which bear in mind was released and then never really properly implemented, ended up having a model like this. Well, assuming they put more work into the content there, but I mean, hey, Blizzard doing content work in Overwatch seems unlikely to me. Certainly, though, it does seem like the next Overwatch game will be a PvE-focused one, and I find it very hard to see Blizzard just release a $60 game without further monetization. So, I think the idea of a game being split up for purchase, it can make sense sometimes, but it's an extremely fine line. The good side is that customers will, who really know what they want, they can get a good deal, which effectively creates a lower barrier to entry for the game in terms of price, bolsters the player base of the game, and that's pretty good. It can also serve as a robust free demo, letting users test the game on their hardware and just see if they enjoy them. That is actually something that, once again, would help to bolster online player numbers, but we cannot ignore the downsides of a model like this. Overall, it is more expensive. Companies will always want to offer you the full thing at a discount, so as much as dynamic bundle pricing would be the fair thing to do, it kind of seems unlikely. That would kind of mean capitalizing off the indecision of people who might, buy a character or two and then decide they want the full game and end up kind of being a bit behind. Personally, I think this could work well for a limited number of games. Being able to only purchase the multiplayer component of, say, a Call of Duty game for $30 would be a solid deal for many people. I know I wouldn't be playing the zombies, really, or the BR, considering the existence of Apex. However, for other games, this would not really fit. And for it to work, ideally, companies would have to use dynamic bundle pricing in order to not be nickel and diming their customers. But there is actually A far deeper worry, and that it could impact development, making games more segmented and less of a holistic experience. Basically, this sort of business model could ruin a game if it was shoehorned in, and indeed, this is something we have seen before with Square Enix. And if you would like to learn more about what Square Enix did, you've just got to watch Super Bunny Hop's video. He was the guy who broke the story. He did an incredible job talking about how the live service plans greatly damaged Hitman and Just Cause. So there you go. Let me know what you think about the business model down in the description. There's another video on Google and their big gaming plans, which is actually pretty damn interesting. And you've got to check out yesterday's video, No Man's Sky. I know a lot of people are skeptical about that game, but what they have done is very interesting. And as a story of a developer just continuing to work in their game instead of throwing the big sack of cash in their back and running away, it's pretty much worth like knowing about, I suppose. And then finally, that Super Bunny Hop video, super solid. I recommend checking it out. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.